Have you guys ever noticed that the federal government doesn't seem to care much for what's happening in the world of small farms? You know, it might just be coincidence, it might be accidental, but it seems like they go through a lot of effort to implement a lot of regulations, and all of them that I can follow seem to be very detrimental to small independent farmers. I'm Stephen Reichert. This is Rowan Ridge Farm. We are raising heritage hogs on pasture the old fashioned way. I'm going to do a new thing, an uncut, unpolished 5-minute farm rant. And today, the federal government's overregulation of antibiotics has fallen into my crosshairs. I've done some other videos talking about the processing of meat and how that screws small farmers, and I'll link that in the comments below. But the issue with antibiotics is something that kind of came to my attention recently as I was making a video on kind of like the basics of medical care for pigs, which is a question that I had got, and I'll also link that in the video below, or in the description below if you want to check that out. But in June of 2023, the FDA passed a regulation stating that no longer are independent farmers, producers, homesteaders able to go to your local Tractor Supply or farm store and buy antibiotics over the counter without the written permission, the permission slip from a veterinary medicine practitioner saying that it was okay to do so. Now, vets are not inexpensive, and I work in medicine for people. I'm a registered nurse, so I don't bag on anybody in the veterinary medicine profession for the cost of that. But when you are running a small farm, spending $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 on a vet bill, that's like a month's worth of feed, maybe even 2 or 3 months worth of feed, just to get a permission slip from somebody for something that you already know that you need. And then, of course, there's the cost of the medication on top of that. And combining that with the fact that in my area, I live in a rural area where there are very few large animal vets, and of the large animal vets, none of them see pigs. So if I want to get a vet who's going to see a pig, I have to go like over an hour away from where I am. And of course, that adds more fees and that adds more inconvenience, so that if I have a sick animal, it's a lot of hoops that I got to jump through in order to get that animal treated and taken care of now. So one of the things that I've gotten in some of the comments when I mentioned this issue, get a lot of people kind of, the people with good intentions saying, oh, well, no, you have to have doctors to prescribe antibiotics because, silly, that's how you get superbugs, and we have to be careful and trust the science, and we need experts to govern the use of medicine. Well, let me tell you something. I have given a lot of antibiotics to a lot of people. If I had a nickel for every time I gave a bag of antibiotics in somebody's IV, I'd be eating nickel soup right now. And so what happens is when somebody goes to the hospital and they have an infective process or a wound, and they need antibiotics, right? The first thing we do all kinds of tests to find out exactly what the thing is that they are dealing with, what the pathogen is. But until we get those studies back, because those studies take multiple days in some cases to result, we give a broad spectrum antibiotic, like your penicillin basically, but we give an IV form that goes right in to start working. Now, antibiotics kill bacteria because they're antibiotic. They're killing good bacteria and bad bacteria, but we're going to definitely get the bad bacteria at the very least. And then as we get a better idea of what the specific pathogen is that we're targeting, we refine the approach to a more specific type of antibiotic that doesn't kill everything, but that just targets the type of pathogen that's creating the problem. So there's a decent amount of trial and error and guesswork that goes on in medicine when we're dealing with people. And if we transfer that mindset onto the fact that we're dealing with animals whose average lifespan is a year or less in most cases, it seems like it's a reasonable risk to take to allow farmers who have to wear every single other hat to maintain the health of their herd and the function of their facility and their property to also be able to use antibiotics to treat their animals, because in the vast majority of cases, what I usually do, penicillin is kind of the first line thing, and if that makes a dent in it, they get 2 to 3 more days and then that's it. If the animal improves, good, and then they're done. And if it doesn't help anything, then maybe we try to shift to a different type of antibiotic. But normally, in most cases, there's a handful of different antibiotics that you can use, and it's relatively simple to take that same approach that we use in the hospital, where we start broad and then we narrow our focus depending on whether or not that broad antibiotic does anything or not. And the idea of superbugs being created, and if small farmers and homesteaders using penicillin on their sick livestock, if I have 1 or 2 pigs a year that need antibiotics, that's a lot. The idea that small producers rarely having instances where they're using antibiotics, that is going to somehow lead to the creation of a superbug, is complete and absolute nonsense. The regulations by the FDA are not there to protect you, the general public. They're not there to protect me or my animals. They're there to just to set one more roadblock in the way of a small producer who could feed their community and cut into the profit margins of the big producers who benefit, because the big producers that, like Smithfield Pork, for example, they already have a vet on staff, on retainer. Saying that you now need a vet script to get antibiotics, that doesn't change a thing for them at all, because that's how they're getting their antibiotics. It's with a vet, and they're paying those vets. So whatever they're going to do, even if that means being a little bit overzealous with the use of antibiotics to compensate for the fact that the living conditions may not be that healthy. This is called prophylaxis. We take a just-in-case approach where we can't make the living environment healthy. And so when we're operating at a large scale, you have a bunch of animals jammed in together, suboptimal living conditions, but we can just give them a little extra antibiotics just in case to keep them healthy. That's prophylaxis. And, large producers are able to do that, and do that more often than I would like to admit. I can't say that they all do that. But the point is, those are the type of environments that create superbugs, not some Joe Schmo in the back of New Hampshire who's raising, 20 or 30 pigs in their backyard. And yet, we're the ones who are getting screwed by this. So I just want to bring this to your attention. Take a moment to rant. If you guys like the rants, you agree, make sure you subscribe to this channel. We want to make America farmers again, and the way that we do that is by empowering you guys to go into this with your eyes open. It's about educating everybody, including the public, so that people stop and think and say, wait a minute, maybe the overregulation of everything is not actually there to help us. It's doing a lot more to hurt everybody. And when people wonder, well, why is it so expensive to buy pork directly from a farmer instead of, the cost that you buy from Smithfield? Well, this is part of the reason. It's because we have more hoops to jump through that we can't afford to jump through. Smithfield doesn't have that issue. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let me know if you agree, disagree. Give me some arguments. Maybe there's somebody who can let me know in the comments why exactly I'm wrong about this, and you can change my mind. I'm a pretty rational person, but I am licensed to practice medicine for people. And so this isn't something that I just kind of rolled off the turnip truck and decided to make an argument about one day because I got my shorts in a twist. I'm interested to hear valid arguments if somebody has something that I haven't thought of. Until then, we'll see you guys in the next video.